Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to Learn to Read Quran. So first of all, apologies, I haven't posted a class in a very long time. I'm going to use the Quran as my excuse. I'm trying to learn the Quran by heart and it's taking up a lot of my time. So, but excuses aside, let's get on and do our next class. So here we go. We are on Surah An-Nasr. Now, this is going to be an interesting surah, and you'll see why when we get to it. I won't tell you, keep you in suspense, but there's an exciting new concept that we're going to learn here on this surah. So obviously, we're going to start in the correct way. We're going to start with our isti'adha, seeking refuge with Allah from shaitan. We have أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Obviously, that's not here on this page, but it is there in the lesson of preparing to read Quran if you need to go back and look and see how that was vocalized. But we will start here. Line 1, we have the Basmala, which is the sentence here, the line here where we're starting with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have Bismillah Rahim. So, my green markings here have told you what's joining, what's stretched, and the fact that we ignore this last vowel and we put a sukoon on it. But if you've been following the classes for this course, then none of that is new to you. So let's start with our surah. We're here on line 2, which is the first ayah. We have إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. Ooh, that's interesting, isn't it? So I'm actually going to rub out these green markings just to make things a little bit clearer, and I'm going to go to this beautiful red color of my pen so I can show you really what's going on, and you compare. Please do pay attention to this. So we have Hamza with the kasra, that's easy, E. We have Dhal with Fatha Alif, that's easy again, two stretch, the. Here we have a Jim with a Fatha Alif, which would be 2, but this med sign here tells us that we are stretching for 4. So Ja, and then we have the Hamza A. And we know from our class when we did the 4-count stretch that we get this 4-count stretch because we have this Hamza afterwards. Again, if you need to go back to that class, please do. Okay, so we have Nas. Okay, so something I want to say here. The noon with the fatha is not heavy. Why do I say that? Because the sad is. Sad is heavy. We need to make that thick and heavy. Even though it has a sukoon, it still needs to be sounded as a heavy noise. So we have the fa noise that will come, but the noon, please make sure you do not make that heavy. I have heard my students saying nos. It's not nos because noon with a feta is not no. It's na, which is a light noise. So this light noise joins to the thick heavy sad. Nas. That's the noon joining to the sad. Then the ra with the dhamma. What's happening to that? Well, if you have a look, I am jumping over the Hamza to Wasl and joining to the lam in this word. This is the word Allah. And we know something about the word Allah. We know actually quite a few things about the word Allah. We know that if we join up to this lam, the one with the shadda, if we join up to it with a dhamma or a fatha, then the lam is thick and heavy. And it's only specifically for this word, isn't it, that this lam can be thick and heavy. We also know that there's a hidden 2-count stretch, and the hidden 2-count stretch will also then be heavy because this lam is heavy. Why is it heavy? Because we're joining with a dhamma from the ra. So from the beginning we have إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ. You can hear the lam thick and heavy. As soon as you get to the lam, make it thick and heavy. So Nas Rullah. The 2 count stretch also is thick and heavy. He, because this is the ha with the kasra. Then we have a wow jumping over the hamza to wasl to join to the lam. That's easy peasy. Wal. Give time to the lam. Lam or any letter with sukoon always needs to get more time. Here, if you don't give time to the lam to let the sound flow through, then it's very easy for that sound to get missed in the recitation. And that is the purpose of knowing how to read the Quran accurately, that it is so clear that anyone hearing it does not mistake any of the words. So we have well. Now, what do we have here? We have a fa joining to a ta, and you'll say, Almas, that's not difficult. And I'll say, I know, that's not difficult. It's just fat. But then we also know that our stopping mechanism or our rule of stopping is that when we stop on the last letter of our word, here it's the ha, we ignore whatever vowel is on it and we put a sukoon. We put a sukoon. So this actually now means we have to join the fa to the ta, because the ta has a sukoon, and then we have to sound out a ha with a sukoon. So that's why you have to use the breathy noise of the ha to denote the sukoon. So we have from the wow here, we have wal fath. You can hear the and that's the ha with sukoon. Okay, let's move on. I think I'll go back to my green color for the first run through of line 3, which is ayah number 2. We have wa ra ay tan na sa yad khu lu na fi di nillahi af wa ja. Okay, so you might have noticed something different. Oh, I hope you did. I hope you noticed that we didn't perhaps stop in the way that you thought we would. We got to do 2 count stretch at the end here on the jeem. And that is because, let me just take off some of all these green marks so that we can go through again, but in red. That is because this is now I'm teaching you a second rule of stopping. Our basic rule of stopping that we've learned is that when we end the last letter, we assume that that vowel is not there. We assume that it is a sukoon, just as we did here on the ha in the first ayah. But when you stop on a tanween of fatha, the double fatha, you only remove one fatha. What does that mean? That means that if I remove this vowel here, what do I get left with, people? I get left with a jeem with one fatha and an alif. So what does that give me? Yes, it gives me a 2 count stretch. So all this time where we've had to just accept that a double fatha, a tanween of fatha, is followed by an alif, and we do nothing with that alif, well, finally, poor old alif here, been standing guard all the time, finally gets used when you stop on a tanween of fatha. So when you stop on a tanween of fatha, you always get a 2 count stretch. Always with one exception. Yes, you knew there was going to be one exception. The only exception is if I had to stop on a ta marbuta, which is the tied up ta, the circle with the 2 dots, and if this has 2 fathas, actually you don't get a 2 count stretch. But we're getting a bit ahead of the game. We will meet this in a later surah, so I'll save that till then. So let's go through ayah number 2 here. From the beginning of ayah number 2, we have wa, ra. Everybody make sure you make that ra thick and heavy because it does have a fatha. Ay, the a noise of the hamza is joining to the ya with the sukoon. Make sure you put some sound through it. Don't stop too quick. Don't say ay, That won't be a proper sound. A, you can hear the sound flowing through. Then you've got the ta with the fatha joining up and over to the noon with the shadda. You ignore the hamzatul wasl. You ignore the lam because it's got nothing on it. You join to the noon with the shadda. Noon with the shadda, you must hear the ghunna. So, وَرَأَيْتَنْ, there's the ghunna. Then, وَرَأَيْتَنَّا. Why have I got 2 count stretch? Because I've got a fatha with an alif. So there's a 2 count stretch. Sa, the scene with the fatha. Now I have a ya with a fatha joining to the dal. The dal has the sukoon, so that's why I'm joining. And dal with sukoon, hopefully you all remember this now, that there are 5 letters. When they have a sukoon on them, you need to get that bounce back of noise. Dal is one of them, so that's why you've got yad, and you've got that bounce back. Hu, the kha is thick and heavy, it has a damma. Lu, 2 stretch. Lam with a damma and a wow. Na, because the noon has a fatha. Fi, the fa has a kasra, but it also has a ya, so that's why I get a 2 count stretch. Di, a dal with a kasra and a ya gives me the 2 count stretch. Noon with a kasra, it's going to join into this word. This is the word Allah. I said it like that, as if the lam was thick and heavy, but when you join to the word Allah with a kasra, which is what we're going to do here from the noon, then this lam stays light. You still have a 2 count stretch, you still have that hidden 2 count stretch, but the 2 count stretch will also be light because the lam with the shadda stays light. So we have, I'll start from here, from the fa, fi, di, nilla. See, nice and light. Fi, di, nillahi. F, give time to the fa, let that F flow through the fa. That's how you get that lovely f noise. F, wa, 2 count stretch with the wow, fatha and alif, and ja, 2 count stretch with the jim, because by stopping on a jim that had the tanween of fatha, we take off 1 fatha and we get left with a fatha and an alif. So this is a 2 count stretch. Phew, that might have been a lot to take in. We are nearly there. We're on the last ayah. Let me go back to green. We're on the last ayah here, so let's keep going. We have fa, sabbih, bi, hamdi, rabbi, ka, wastaghfir. I'm going to just explain this before I move on. This here, this is probably the first time we're noticing this. This here is basically a punctuation mark. So it's a punctuation mark, a bit like a comma if you were reading something in English. The jim here actually stands for the word jaiz, and jaiz in Arabic means permissible, permission. So I have permission to stop here. I can take a breath here because I think I've mentioned this before. When you're reading Quran, there are etiquettes of breathing, but because this is a complete beginner's course, we're learning to read, we don't go into major detail on that. And that is actually why we do these short ayahs, so that we don't need an extra oxygen tank to be able to read the ayahs, because some of the ayahs in the Quran are quite long. For example, the longest ayah in the Quran is a full page long, whereas you can see these are just short lines. So what did I do here on this word? I'm starting from the wow here. I've got was, tell, make sure the rain is nice and thick and heavy, and give it sound, give it time. Then I've got a fa, and I'm going to join to the ra. Now, the ra has a sukoon. I know that a ra can be thick and heavy when it has a fatha or a damma, or if it has a sukoon and before it there was a fatha or a damma, or ra can be light when it has a kasra, or before it is a letter with a kasra. And here I have a fa with the kasra. So this is making my ra with sukoon light. So I have fir. But then I'm going to stop here on the ha, and my basic rule of stopping is I change the dhamma into a sukoon. So I need to sound out the ra with the kasra, with the sukoon, and I need to sound out the ha as well with the sukoon. This ha is that deep sort of, I call it like a masculine ha. Yeah, so we've got was, starting from the wow again, was tawfir. So you can hear the ra and you can also hear the ha with the sukoon. I'll carry on because I can take a breath now and I can carry on from here. I have inna hu, two stretch there, kana tawaba. Okay, so let me take off my green markings and turn to the vibrant red to go through again in maybe a little bit slower. So we have fa with a fatha, fa, sab. I'm joining to the ba because the ba has the shadda, and I keep my lips pressed through that first ba, because remember, ba with shadda means there's two bas sat in the same place. The first ba has the sukoon, which is why I can join from the scene, and then the second ba has the kasra that you see underneath it. So I have fasabbih. Now that noise is joining to the ha with the sukoon. Then I have one letter on top of the other. So again, to make sense of it, this bit here is carrying the dot and the kesra. So that's a ba with the kesra. So I have bi, and then I've got this, which is the ha with the fatha. So bi ham di. Ra with the fatha is thick and heavy, joining to the ba with the shadda and the kasra. Rabbi ka was fir. So I join to the ra, then I sound out the ha with the sukoon. Inna. So you heard the ghunna clearly. I held on to that ghunna before I sounded out the fatha on top of the noon. Hu, the ha with the dhamma gave me a 2-count stretch. Ka, the kaf with the fatha and the alif gave me a 2-count stretch. Na. Now this last word, the ta is joining to a wow. I know it's joining because the wow has a shadda. So a wow with a shadda means there are two wows. The first wow has the sukoon, and we know that every letter with sukoon gets a bit more time, and the time is there to either to hear the sound or the breath or both that run through that letter. So we have taw, that's me joining into the wow with the sukoon. I've yet to say the fatha on top of the wow. Tawa. So that's when I've sounded out the wow with the fatha and the 2-count stretch because of the alif. Now the ba here, remember I'm going to stop here with a 2-count stretch, and you'll think, but why? I can't see two fathas. This here, this meme would originally have been a fatha. So originally you would have seen this two fathas. The meme is there because of the rules of noon, sukoon, and tanween. The next letter in succession that would have been recited after this fatha of tanween would have been the ba of the bismillah, and the holding of the ghunna here on the fatha tanween would have changed to a meme. Oh, I know that's a lot to take in. If you need to go back to the rules of noon and tanween, then please do so. This is the qalb lesson. This is here. This would have turned to not holding the ghunna as a noon, but holding the ghunna as a meme. Yeah, okay. maybe I'll stop explaining there because I can see your eyes glazing over. Anyway, so just to say that it would have been two fathas. The meme has taken the place of the second fatha. I'm just going to cancel that out because I know that when I stop on a tanween of fatha, I only use one fatha and I use the alif. So I get a 2 count stretch of ba. Okay, so bear with me 1 second. I'm going to take all my markings off. I like doing this. It's very satisfying taking all of those markings off. Okay, so I've taken all of the markings off, and now I will go through and I will recite Surah An-Nasr in a more fluent style. Please follow along. So here we go. We have Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. So that is what I would call a semi-fluent recitation of Surah An-Nasr. I didn't want to do the recitation too speedily because I did want you to be able to follow along. Obviously, after you've been through all the explanations that we did as well, and if you needed to repeat those before you listen to the more fluent recitation of this surah. But well done. Well done for sticking with this class this far. I mean, we really are very much on the home straight. We only have another few surahs left to do before we can say we've completed the course. And so I look forward to seeing you all again next time. Assalamu alaikum.